In the brutal and untamed lands of Arizona, where a man's word is measured by the steel on his hip, and mercy is rarer than spring rain, a tale of redemption was about to take root. Two Apache sisters, stripped from everything they once held dear, were about to discover that sometimes salvation arrives from the least expected corner. A man weighed down by the ghosts of his past would make a choice that defied every law and custom the frontier held sacred. This is a story about the real meaning of kinship, the cost of freedom, and how love can take root even in the darkest soil of cruelty. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Dust swirled thick as a storm over Tombstone that afternoon, raised by 50 horses and creaking wagons, until the air itself became a brown curtain over the rough auction yard. October 3rd, 1881, a date that would carve itself into my memory forever. I hadn't meant to be there, but business held me in town longer than I cared for. And when I heard the racket, curiosity pulled me in. What I found froze the blood in my veins. It wasn't cattle they were selling as I'd thought. It was people. My name is Zeke Callahan, though most call me simply Zeke. 42 years on this earth, and I've seen more than enough of its cruelty to last several lifetimes. I wore the uniform as a cavalry officer in the Apache Wars, fought battles that still stain my dreams, and buried my wife, Margaret Maggie O'Donnell, 3 years past, when sickness took her. Since then, I've lived alone on my spread in Red Canyon, wrestling with a past that never quits clawing at me. But nothing in my years had prepared me for the sight I stumbled upon that day. The auctioneer, a greasy scoundrel by the name of Bartholomew Bart Kincaid, stood high on a rough-hewn platform, barking out his pitch as if men and women were stock to be herded. Step right up, folks. Fine stock today, strong backs, good for ranching, mining, whatever suits your needs. The crowd was a swarm of hard-eyed men, miners, ranchers, drifters, most of whose purposes I'd rather not imagine. They prodded the captives like they were horses at market-checked teeth, squeezed muscles weighing their value with callous tongues that turned my stomach. Most of the prisoners were Apache, dragged in from raids or skirmishes. Men, women, even children, all shackled and displayed as if they were nothing more than merchandise. It should have been unlawful, but there in the crowd stood Sheriff Virgil McGraw himself, not as lawman, but as a bidder. Then I saw them. 2 young Apache women near the far end of the line caught my eye at once. Sisters, it was clear by their faces. High cheekbones, the same proud bearing that no chain could take away. The elder, about 26, stood in front of the younger, no more than 19, as if her body alone could shield her. What struck me most was their defiance. While others hung their heads or trembled, these 2 stood tall. The older one's eyes burned with barely contained fire, while the younger's gaze shone with a quiet dignity no humiliation could erase. "Now, here's something worth a look," Kincaid crowed, strutting toward them. 2 Apache squaws sisters, no less. Strong young, built to last. And I'll promise you, they'll work hard with the right kind of motivation. The lewd chuckles of the crowd made my fists knot. "The older one's got spirit," Kincaid smirked, careful to stay out of her reach. "Might need breaking, but she'll be worth the trouble. The younger's gentler, perfect for house duties." He spoke of them like livestock, and the filth of it made me sick clear through. "We'll start the bidding at $50 for the pair." Hands shot up. 75. 100. I stood there, horror rising with each call. These weren't men seeking ranch help. I saw the hunger in their eyes, darker appetites. The elder sister's gaze cut across the crowd and locked on mine. For an instant we stared one another down. What I saw struck like a blow. It wasn't a plea. This woman was too proud to beg. It was a challenge, a demand. Will you stand idle, or will you act? 150, roared a heavyset man. I knew Gideon slayed mine owner with a reputation for grinding men into the dirt. 175, shouted Harlan Briggs, notorious in every saloon for how he treated women. My fury rose with each bid. These were flesh and blood, not property. The younger began to tremble, but still held her chin high. The elder's jaw was set like iron. 250 Briggs bellowed, silencing the yard. That was more money than most would see in half a year. Kincaid's greedy eyes swept the crowd. Going once. Going twice. Something in me broke loose. Maybe I saw the ghost of my little sister long buried. Maybe it was guilt for my hand in the Apache wars. Or maybe it was simply the raw evil of it all, the 100. The words came out before I knew it. Every head turned my way. Kincaid's face lit with greed while Briggs glared like a bull ready to charge. Well, well, Kincaid grinned. Zeke Callahan enters the bidding. 300 from the gentleman in back. Briggs's face flushed crimson. 325. 350. I shot back without pause. 400, he snarled. The crowd buzzed, thrilled by the war of numbers. My eyes drifted back to the sisters. The elder still studied me as if weighing the truth of my soul. 500, I declared, loud and clear. The crowd gasped. It was a fortune more than many would earn in a year. Briggs looked ready to push on, but even his greed had its limits. Going once, going twice. Sold, Bartholomew Bart Kincaid slammed his gavel. The Apache sisters belonged to Mr. Zeke Callahan for $500. I shoved through the press of bodies to seal the deal, whispers trailing me like snakes in the dust. What's Callahan want with 2 squaws? Someone muttered. Thought he was still mourning Maggie. Man must have peculiar tastes. I ignored their tongues and faced Kincaid, who was nearly drooling with satisfaction. Congratulations, Mr. Callahan. Fine choice. These 2 will serve you well, you'll see. Without a word, I pressed the money into his greedy palm. Then I turned to the women. The word purchases caught in my throat, near choking me. I had just bought human souls. Even if it was to spare them a fate worse than hell, the truth made my stomach churn. They stared at me with unreadable eyes. The chains had been unclasped from the main line, but their wrists were still bound. What are your names? I asked in the broken Apache I still recalled from my soldiering days. The older one's eyes flickered in surprise, yet she held her tongue. I asked your names, I repeated in English. I am Savannah Rose Whitaker, she said at last, voice steady, proud. This is my sister, Emily Grace Hollister. Well, Savannah Rose, Emily Grace. I told them we've got a long ride ahead. As I helped them toward my wagon, the weight of 100 eyes bore down. That's when Sheriff Virgil McGraw stepped forward, a smirk tugging his lip. Callahan, he drawled, hope you know what you're getting into. Apache women don't bend easy. I can manage, I answered. Just remember they're your property now. Any trouble, it's on your head. The word property cut through me like a rusty knife. I gave him a nod and climbed onto the wagon seat. As Tombstone's streets fell behind us, I caught Savannah Rose's reflection in the wagon's side glass. She whispered sharply to Emily Grace in Apache, no doubt wondering what fate I had bought them into. I couldn't blame them. For near an hour we rode in silence, wheels groaning, hooves striking dust. At last, Emily Grace's timid English broke through. Where are you taking us? I turned, looking at the 2 young women whose lives had cost me $500 hard and changed mine forever. Home, I said simply. I'm taking you home. Confusion clouded their eyes, but behind it flickered the faintest glimmer of hope. Red Canyon Ranch sprawled in a valley ringed by cliffs, that glowed blood red in the sun. 2,000 acres of grazing land, a stout house, barns, corrals, the dream Maggie and I once built together. Now it felt too vast, too empty for one man. As we rolled up Clara Bell Sutton, my housekeeper of 10 years stepped out. She froze at sight of the sisters and crossed herself. "Lord above Zeke, what have you done? Something I should have done long ago," I answered, climbing down. I circled to the wagon bed, hand outstretched. Savannah Rose hesitated, then accepted it, her grip firm skin warm against the October chill. Emily Grace allowed me to lift her down with gentler trust. They stood uncertain in my yard, still bound, unsure of what awaited them. Clara Bell. I said ready 2 guest rooms, and find proper clothes for our guests. Guests. Her brows shot high. That's right. Guests. Turning to the sisters, I locked eyes with each. You are not my property. You are not slaves. What happened in Tombstone was wrong. I'm sorry for it. I pulled a knife from my pocket and they stiffened. But instead of harm, I cut the cords from their wrists. You're free to leave whenever you want. But if you stay, you'll be treated as part of this household with the dignity that comes with it. Savannah Rose rubbed her raw wrists, staring at me with something unreadable. Why she demanded. Why pay for us if not to use us? Because I said the words pulled from a hollow. I thought long dead, sometimes the hardest road is the only right one. That night I sat in my study moonlight painting the red cliffs silver. I'd brought 2 Apache women under my roof in a land where hatred for their kind still ran hot. I'd spent money I could scarce afford, and I couldn't know if my choice would ever be understood. But when I thought of what would have become of Savannah Rose and Emily Grace, if I'd done nothing, I knew I'd made the only choice my soul could live with. The question now was if I could keep them safe, and if they could ever trust the man who had once fought against their people. For the first time, in 3 empty years, I felt a spark of purpose flicker back to life. Chapter 2. I rose before dawn, as was my way, but the house felt different. For the first time since Maggie's passing, other souls breathed under this roof. As I brewed coffee, I heard muffled voices upstairs, Clara Bell's Spanish laced with broken Apache, and the sisters' hushed replies. When Clara Bell came down an hour later, her face was troubled. "Mr. Callahan, we need to talk. What's wrong? Those girls, they've been through hell." The younger Emily Grace barely speaks. Won't tell what they suffered before that auction. And Savannah Rose. Clara Bell Sutton shook her head. "That woman's like a wolf cornered. She don't trust nobody, least of all a white man. Can you fault her? No, I surely can't. But Mr. Callahan, you best understand what you've stepped into. They reckon this is some trick that you're just waiting for them to drop their guard so you can—" The thought of them seeing me as just another predator tightened my chest. Then how do I prove different? Time. Clara Bell said, her voice low. Patience, and a heap of prayer. I was brushing down the horses when Savannah Rose Whitaker appeared in the doorway. She wore one of the dresses Clara Bell had dug out, but she carried herself like a fighter, sharp-eyed and ready. "You speak Apache," she said flatly. "A little. Learned some during my cavalry days. You fought my people. It wasn't a question and lying was useless. Yes, I did. How many did you kill?" Her bluntness struck hard, but I owed her truth. I don't know. It was war. Men fell on both sides. Women. Children too. Never. I never harmed women or children. She searched my face, eyes narrowing, weighing every word. Why should I believe you? Because it's the truth. And if I'd meant you harm, I wouldn't have cut your ropes last night. Maybe you just prefer your victims willing. Her words cut like a slap, but I steadied my voice. Maybe, or maybe I am, what I told you, a man trying to do the right thing. And what's the right thing? Zeke Callahan. What do you expect of us? Nothing. Only that you treat me with the same respect I'll show you. Respect? She gave a bitter laugh. You bought us like cattle in the ring. Where's the respect in that? It isn't. What happened in Tombstone was wrong, and I'm sorry. I can't change it. All I can do now is try to set things right from here on. She fell quiet, watching, as I stroked down my horse's neck. At last, she said, My sister thinks you might be different. She's always been too trusting. And you, I think white men are good at speaking pretty words when it suits them. Fair enough, I answered. I knew I'd have to prove myself by deeds, not promises. Where are you from? I asked, shifting the subject. The Chiricahua Mountains. My band lived there for generations before. She stopped short. Before what? Before men like you decided we didn't belong. Over the next days, a fragile routine took shape. Clara Bell busied herself helping the sisters settle in, finding them clothes and showing them around. Emily Grace Hollister, the younger, began to open up bit by bit, especially to Clara Bell's gentle hand. Savannah Rose stayed distant, suspicious, yet I often caught her watching me when she thought I wasn't aware. She was measuring me, waiting for the mask to slip. The first true test came on the 4th day, when Sheriff Virgil McGraw rode up with 2 deputies. Callahan, he barked as I stepped onto the porch. We need words. I saw Savannah Rose and Emily Grace peering from an upstairs window and prayed they couldn't sense my unease. What's the trouble, Sheriff? Got reports your new stock's been thieving. Neighbor swears one of them stole chickens. It was a lie, and we both knew it. My nearest neighbor lived 5 miles off, and the sisters hadn't left the ranch. That's curious, I said evenly, since they haven't stepped off my land. You calling me a liar, Callahan? I'm saying your information's wrong. His eyes narrowed. Then I'll need to search your place. Make sure you're keeping them savages under control. You have a warrant. Don't need one for runaway property. They're not runaways, I shot back. They're my guests. Guests. Virgil chuckled darkly. Is that what we're calling it now? Before I could answer, Savannah Rose moved onto the porch beside me, silent as a shadow. Is there a problem here? She asked, her English clear, precise. Virgil eyed her with disdain. Well, the squaw speaks English. How refined. I felt her stiffen, but her voice stayed calm. I speak 3 tongues, English, Spanish, and Apache. How many do you know? Sheriff. His face flushed red. Careful, girl, or you'll find yourself back on the block. That's enough, I barked, stepping forward. State your business or get off my land. My business is keeping the peace. These Apache been raiding, stealing stock, killing God-fearing folk. How do I know your 2 ain't scouting for raiders because they've been right here under my eye since Tuesday? Unless you're accusing me of aiding outlaws. The air grew sharp. Virgil was crooked, but not fool enough to brand a rancher like me without proof. Keep him on a short leash, Callahan. Any trouble, I'll hold you to account. After they rode off, Savannah Rose and I stood in silence on the porch. Thank you, she said at last. For what? For not giving us over. Would have been easier for you. I don't do things because they're easy. She studied me, and in her eyes I thought I saw the faintest trace of respect breaking through. Then tell me plain, Zeke Callahan, why did you truly buy us? And don't hand me the line about doing the right thing. Men don't throw down $500 on strangers out of righteousness. I'd been asking myself the same thing for days. At last I had the words. Because I said slowly 3 years ago, I lost everything worth living for. My wife, Margaret Maggie O'Donnell, and the child we never got to meet. My sense of purpose. I've been walking like a dead man ever since. But when I saw you and your sister standing proud on that platform, refusing to bow despite the chains, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever. What was that hope? The belief that broken things can be mended, that what's been taken can somehow be found again. That evening, Emily Grace Hollister stepped out onto the porch, while Savannah Rose helped Clara Belle Sutton with supper. The younger one had begun to ease some around me, though she still spoke sparingly. "My sister doesn't trust Easy," she said, her voice soft. "I've noticed. She has reason. The men who caught us, they were cruel." The weight of her words made my fists clench tight. "I'm sorry for what you endured. Savannah Rose kept me safe. She always does. But surviving changes a person." I looked at this girl barely past childhood, yet carrying wisdom carved out by suffering. "What do you want now, Emily? Grace? Where do you wish to go?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Our people are scattered. Our village destroyed. Some driven to the reservation, some fled to Mexico. We have no family left but each other. Then stay here, both of you, as long as you choose." "Why? What do you gain by keeping us?" A fair question, one. I was still untangling myself. Maybe it was a chance to be a better man than the one I had been. Maybe a chance to make amends for sins I couldn't erase. And maybe she said with a small, brave smile, "We all gain a family." That word struck harder than I'd expected. Family. A thing I'd buried with Maggie. That night lying awake, her words echoed through me. Could it be true? Could three souls divided by blood and history really forge something like a family? The thought was as wondrous as it was terrifying. Across the hall, I heard Savannah Rose and Emily Grace whispering in Apache, their voices weaving softly through the night. I couldn't understand the words, but the sound itself eased the emptiness of my house. For the first time since Maggie's death, I slept, knowing I wasn't entirely alone. But I also knew the true storm hadn't yet broken. Virgil McGraw wouldn't be the last to stir trouble over the sisters under my roof. And I still had to earn Savannah Rose's trust, prove myself worthy of it. The question was whether I had the strength to protect them when the trial came, and I could feel it closing fast. 2 weeks later, that test arrived with the thunder of hooves. Bartholomew Bart Kincaid rode up with 3 armed brutes at his side just after sunrise. I was in the barn when Clara Belle came running, face pale as chalk. "Mr. Callahan, the slavers here with gunmen, ice shot through my veins." I seized my rifle and strode toward the house where Savannah Rose and Emily Grace already peered down from an upstairs window. "Stay inside," I called. "No matter what happens, don't come out." Kincaid sat grinning on his horse, his men looking every bit like hired killers. "Callahan," he sang out. "Hope you don't mind me paying an early call. State your business and be gone. Now, no need to ruffle feathers. I've come on a matter of property rights." "What rights?" I growled. "Seems those Apache girls you bought had a prior claim. Belonged to someone else." My rifle was steady in my hands, though not yet raised. "That's a lie. You sold them to me straight." But I never held rightful title. Turns out they were taken by a bounty man named Gideon Slade, meant for a military prison. They slipped free, I scooped them up, figured they were fair pickings. It was a filthy lie, and we both knew it, but the kind that could sink me deep if others believed it. "Morrison here?" He gestured at a hulking brute with eyes like a wolf gone bad. "He's come to collect his property." "They cost me blood and coin to chase down," Slade snarled. "I want 'em back. Plus compensation." How much I asked? Buying time. "Let's say $1,000 and the return of the merchandise. Extortion, plain and simple. They meant to reclaim the sisters, sell them off again, and bleed me dry in the bargain. And if I say no," Kincaid clucked his tongue in mock sorrow, "why then it'd be theft of military prisoners. Sheriff McGraw would have to clap you in irons. A shame, really." At that moment, Savannah Rose stepped onto the porch behind me. I'd told her to stay inside, but she was never one to obey. "You're lying," she said coolly. We were never prisoners of the army. Slade's face twisted with rage and hunger. "Shut your mouth, squaw, before I shut it for you. Try it." She shot back her hand, slipping to the knife at her belt, the one I'd given her. The air grew taut as a drawn bowstring. 4 armed men, 2 unarmed women behind me. One mistake and blood would spill. "Here's my counteroffer," I said, voice steady as my rifle. "You've got 10 seconds to clear out before I start shooting." Bartholomew Bart Kincaid chuckled. "You're outnumbered, Callahan. Best be reasonable." 5 seconds, I warned. "You can't take on all of us." I lifted my rifle barrel, aimed straight at his chest. "Try me." The yard went still as stone, the only sound the pounding of my heart. Then came the thunder of hooves breaking the standoff. Silas Whitmore, the town physician, rode in with 2 men carrying the authority of federal marshals. "Gentlemen, Dr. Whitmore called. I trust I'm not interrupting important business." Kincaid's grin faltered. Marshals carried more weight than any crooked sheriff. "Doc," I said, never lowering my rifle, perfect timing. "Mr. Kincaid," one marshal barked, "we've been hunting you." For me, whatever for Kincaid tried to laugh. Trafficking in slavery. Kidnapping. Running auctions without federal permits. The marshal's voice was flat, cold. "You're under arrest." As they shackled Kincaid and his hired guns, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. Dr. Whitmore swung down from his horse and came to the porch. "Sorry it took so long," he said low. "Had to ride to Tucson to fetch federal backing. Local law wouldn't lift a finger." "How did you know I asked?" "Clara Belle Sutton sent word," he said with a nod toward her. I glanced at Clara Belle, standing in the doorway, arms folded, a spark of triumph in her eyes. "I sent my nephew for help," she explained. "Men like those carry nothing but evil." After the marshals hauled Kincaid and his men away, Dr. Whitmore stayed for coffee. At my request, he looked over the sisters. His face turned grim as he examined old wounds. "They're strong," he told me quietly. "But they've endured hell. The younger one, most of all. She's been harmed in ways that won't heal fast." "What do you mean? Use your imagination, Zeke. And be patient. Trust comes slow after scars like those." That evening, Savannah Rose Whitaker found me on the porch, staring out at the cliffs bathed in fading light. "Thank you," she said, settling into the chair beside me. "For what this time? For standing against those men. For risking your life to shield us. Anyone would have done the same." "No," she said firmly. "Most men would have handed us over to save their own skin." We sat quietly watching the stars blink alive in the wide sky. "Can I ask you something?" she finally said. "When you wore that uniform, when you fought my people, did you ever wonder if it was right?" It was a question that had gnawed at me for years. Toward the end, yes. I came to see we weren't fighting monsters. We were fighting men trying to guard their homes and families, folks not so different from us. What made you see that? I met an Apache warrior during a parley. His name was Nal Nish. Spoke English as well as I do, studied at a mission school. We talked for hours about families, about dreams. I realized he wasn't a savage, just a man protecting what he loved. What became of him? He died in the next fight, shot while trying to surrender. Savannah Rose stayed quiet for a long spell. "Is that why you saved us out of guilt? Partly. But also because it was right. And because—" I hesitated. "Because what? Because you and Emily, Grace Hollister, remind me that there's still good in this world worth protecting." The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Chief Iron Bear, dignified and proud, rode into my yard alone and unarmed. Savannah Rose and Emily Grace rushed out with tears of joy. Uncle Emily Grace cried, throwing her arms around him. He spoke to them swiftly in Apache before turning his sharp gaze on me. "You are the white man who bought my nieces." "Yes, but I freed them the same day." "So I've heard." "Why?" Because no person should be owned by another. The chief studied me long and hard. You fought against my people. I did, and I regret it. Yet now you risk your life to guard Apache women. That is not what decent men do. What is it then, I asked? It is what a good man does, and that is different. He spoke with his nieces at length, then returned to me. They wish to remain here. They say you've given them something they thought forever lost. What's that hope? And a home. He paused, then said, you have my blessing. But mark me, Zeke Callahan, if ever you betray their trust, if ever you harm them, I will come for you myself, I understand. Good. Then welcome to the family. As Chief Ironbear rode away, I stood with Savannah Rose and Emily Grace at my side, feeling something I hadn't known in years, a sense of belonging. So I asked softly, what do we do now? Savannah. Rose's lips curved into the first true smile I'd ever seen from her. Now she said, we build a life. A real family. Emily Grace Hollister slipped her small hand into mine and gave it a gentle squeeze. Home, she whispered. And for the first time since Margaret Maggie O'Donnell had passed, I truly felt like I was home again. Spring came early to Red Canyon that year, rolling in with a breath of renewal that touched every corner of the ranch. 3 months had gone by since the sisters had come under my roof, and the change was nothing short of a miracle. The house that had been a tomb for 3 lonely years now pulsed with warmth. Laughter, voices, the comfort of family. Emily Grace had flourished like a desert bloom after a rainstorm. Her English sharpened quick, and she'd taken over much of the cooking mixing Apache ways into every meal, making dishes more flavorful than anything I'd ever tasted. She sang as she worked soft, haunting songs of her people that filled the walls with music. Savannah Rose Whitaker had shown a gift with the stock. Horses and cattle obeyed her calm hands like she spoke their tongue. She could soothe a panicked stallion with a touch or spot a sick calf before anyone else saw the signs. More than that, I could see the walls she'd built around her heart slowly starting to fall. But on the morning of March 15th, everything changed. I was breaking in a young stallion when Clara Bell Sutton came running, her face lit with joy. Mr. Callahan, quick, there's news. I hurried back to the house and found Savannah Rose and Emily Grace clutching a telegram, tears on their cheeks. My chest tightened, fearing the worst. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing, Savannah Rose answered, wiping her face. Nothing's wrong. Everything's right, more right than we ever dreamed. Emily Grace handed me the telegram with trembling hands. I read it aloud to Savannah Rose Whitaker and Emily Grace Hollister. Stop. Regarding Apache land rights settlement. Stop. Family claim recognized by federal court. Stop. Compensation awarded for stolen lands. Stop. Amount $35,000. Stop. Please contact immediately. Stop. I read it twice, hardly believing. $35,000, I whispered. That's a fortune. Our grandfather filed a claim 20 years ago, Savannah Rose explained. Before he died, he told us, but we never thought it would happen. The government rarely honors Apache claims. But they did this time. Emily Grace breathed wonder in her voice. We're rich, Zeke. Truly rich. The weight of it hit me like a hammer. With that kind of money, they could go anywhere, live free of hardship, never depend on another soul. They could leave me. The thought struck deeper than I expected. That's wonderful, I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. Now you can start fresh anywhere you want. Savannah Rose's eyes flashed. What makes you think we'd want to leave? Well, with that kind of money, you could have anything. A fine house in San Francisco, travel the world if you pleased. And leave you? Emily Grace asked softly. Leave our home. This isn't truly your home, I said, my voice low. You just ended up here by chance. No, Savannah Rose said firmly. We're here because one man cared enough to save us when no one else would. Because someone offered love when the world only gave cruelty. But now you have choices, I said. Real choices. You're right, Savannah Rose said, rising. We do have choices, and I choose to stay here with the man I love. The words struck me like thunder. Love. She had said she loved me. Savannah Rose. My throat tightened. I love you too. I tried to tell myself it was gratitude or need, but it isn't. It's love. I love your courage, your strength, your wounded heart that still carries room for others. I love how you protect your sister like she's the most precious soul on earth. Emily. Grace was smiling through her tears. And I love having a big brother who makes us feel safe. My own eyes burned. Are you sure, truly? Sure. Because if we build this life together, I couldn't bear to lose you. Then don't lose us, Savannah. Rose whispered, stepping close. Marry me, Zeke Callahan. Make us a family. I had dreamed of hearing those words, but never believed they'd be real. You want to marry me, even after everything I've done, everything I've been. Especially because of it, she said. Your past shaped the man who saved us. Your pain helped you understand ours. I looked at them both, the two women who had dragged me out of the grave I'd been living in, and gave the easiest answer of my life. Yes, I said, pulling Savannah Rose into my arms. Yes, I'll marry you, and both of you can stay here forever. Emily Grace grinned mischief in her eyes. Actually, we've got a better idea. Oh, what's that? We want to use the money to grow the ranch, buy more land, build a bigger house, make a place that can shelter others who've lost everything. Savannah Rose's eyes shone with fire. A refuge for our people. A working ranch where Apache families can find work homes and dignity. A bridge between our worlds. The vision was bold, dangerous even. A lot of folks won't like it, I warned. Then we'll change their minds, Emily Grace said with quiet certainty. One soul at a time. The same way you changed ours. 6 months later, on a crisp October morning, Savannah Rose and I were married in the valley below the Red Cliffs. Chief Iron Bear led the Apache ceremony while Dr. Silas Whitmore oversaw the legal vows. The guest list was small, but carried weight. Clara Bell Sutton, and her kin, a handful of neighboring ranchers, who had come to respect our unusual household, and several Apache families who had already begun working on the land we'd expanded together. When I saw Savannah Rose Whitaker walking toward me in a white dress with Emily Grace Hollister at her side as maid of honor, and near enough a daughter, I could hardly believe how far life had carried me. A year before, I had been nothing more than a bitter, broken man waiting to fade away. Now I stood surrounded by family love and a purpose I thought forever lost. Do you take this woman to be your wife? Dr. Whitmore asked. I do, I answered, looking straight into Savannah Rose's dark, steady eyes. And do you take this man as your husband to love and honor in the traditions of both your peoples? I do, Savannah. Rose said, her voice strong and proud. When our lips met, cheers rose from the gathering. Emily Grace's hand tightened on my arm, and in that moment I understood in my bones, this is what family feels like. This is what home means. That evening, beneath the wide Arizona sky, we feasted and danced. Chief Iron Bear drew me aside. You've given my nieces something rare, he said. Not just safety or shelter, but the chance to mend and grow. And they've given me the same gift, I replied. The old chief nodded. The road ahead will not be easy. There will be those who stand against what you are building here. I know, I said. But we'll face it together. Yes, he said with a smile. Together. That is the Apache way. And it seems it is becoming the Callahan way as well. As laughter and music drifted through the night, I stood with my wife and her sister, gazing out over the ranch we were shaping with our own hands. What had begun with one desperate act of rescue had grown into something greater than us, a place where kindness rose above cruelty, where two worlds could labor and live in harmony. It wasn't the life I expected when I rode into Tombstone 7 months earlier. It was better, a life worth living, worth fighting for, and worth passing on to those who came after us. And it had all begun with 3 simple words: I'm taking you home. Sometimes the greatest journeys start with a single step of faith. Sometimes family is not born, but chosen. And sometimes the truest victories don't come from conquering others, but from opening your heart and letting yourself be conquered by love. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us to discover more true tales of the Wild West. Stories that honor resilience, tenderness, and the spirit that God placed in those who blazed the trail. Subscribe, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, and join us once again to journey across this untamed land. Thank you